¿Escuchando? Ahora sí, ¿no? Bueno, muy buenas tardes, muchas gracias por venir. Es un placer para mí daros la bienvenida a la presentación del proyecto final del residente Po-Hao, del residente taiwanés. Esta residencia es fruto de la colaboración entre el programa de residencias de Medialab Prado y el Centro Nacional de Bellas Artes, el Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes de Taiwán, perdón. Po-Hao ha estado con nosotros 7 meses y durante ese tiempo pues, ha estado realizando el proyecto Collage of Hybridity, que bueno, lo que trata de hacer es generar un mundo digital a partir del mundo real y luego con ese mundo analógico que crea, utilizarlo como una interfase para crear sonidos a través de la transformación de las formas y de las texturas. Ya tuvimos una colaboración con el Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes de Taiwán en 2019. Comenzó con la artista Rae Yuping y luego durante la pandemia tuvimos que posponerlo todo hasta 2021, que aunque nos ha costado hemos conseguido tener al artista, al residente aquí. Entonces, quiero agradecer especialmente también la presencia de la directora y de la secretaria del centro de... perdona, ¿cómo es? La Oficina Económica y Cultural de Taipei y también la presencia y la colaboración de Majo Castells y de Javier Villarreal, que han estado apoyando la residencia. Los resultados de esta residencia, junto con las otras 3 residencias que hemos tenido durante, o que vamos a tener todavía una en primavera-verano, de países como Inglaterra, Colombia y Bruselas, se mostrarán en la nave 17 de Matadero, Madrid, durante el otoño. Y sin más, pues paso la palabra a...
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the presentation. I'm happy to share with you what I was doing in Madrid in cooperation with Medialab Prado. I titled my residency project Collage of Hybridity, an ongoing project that initially aims to create interfaces that integrates virtual and physical entities. This is a work-in-progress presentation. I will talk about the concept, process, the public workshop, and experiments on prototyping with different kinds of technological applications in this presentation. First, I want to briefly introduce myself. So I come from Taiwan, and I have background in music composition and economics. I was at MIT for a program named Art, Culture, and Technology in Boston. And I usually work with sound, interactive and generative systems. And I have a studio in Taiwan named Zongsan Creative, usually working on like interactive installation and community-based art festival or different kind of commissions with like emerging and creative technologies. So first, I want to briefly explain the term hybridity. So hybridity in its most basic sense refers to mixture. Here, my focus is on the crossover of digital and analog, or we can say the entanglement between virtual and physical entities. We are immersed in a hybridized environment of reality and augmented reality on a daily basis. For example, many people attend performances intending to place a digital recording device, like an iPhone, in between them and the performers, intentionally layering a digital reality on top of the real world. Which means like even you are on site. You are seeing live performance, but many people prefer to use another interface or digital medium to capture it as a way to create a segment, a clip of memories with this kind of digital technology. And this phenomenon, I regard it as a condition of our time, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, when the usage of the screen has increased significantly. Inspired by the phenomenon, I started considering how people and technology have chosen to remain in touch and united. Has communication come to depend heavily upon the internet? Further, how do we use the technology to connect with each other? And there's a screenshot in this slider, which is because too many people record live performers with their phone. So Apple plan to ban this kind of on-site recordings if people want to avoid people share or distribute this content. So before talking about the progress of my residency project, I would like to share some of my related projects to give you the background of my interest and research directions. I have been working on generative systems built with web applications before and after the pandemic. You can see more information on my website. So, for example, in a project, I named it Performative Aramono. I developed an interactive sound installation made with found objects and kinetic components. It functions like an IoT device, the Internet of Things. So it allows audience to participate interaction using their personal mobile devices, like their smartphones, while maintaining autonomous to play with others. So you have a control interface on your web browser, and you can control the kinetic components in this installation as a drum pad. So you can actually turn found objects into like an instrument. And in one of my web-based composition, Song of Distances, I designed a generative and participatory system that retrieves GPS location data from all the connected sessions. It's a participatory and algorithmic composition based on GPS locationing system. The system continuously calculates the session period and relative distances between the center and each node. So, and every connected session became like a tone in a melody. So if there's no participants, there will be no sound, and everyone is their own center. So every connected devices can hear different compositions. My another approach is to turn mobile devices into an instrument with built-in gyroscope and accelerometer sensor as an embodied process. So in Hidden Playground, I designed several public events that people can just bring their mobile phones and open a web page. And every devices were connected to each other, so they can follow the same instructions to implement a performance altogether. And my last example is virtual confinement. The viewer can only communicate writing a collective diary in a web VR confinement room. I would say this is practice wanted to examine the affordance of these web applications and our mobile devices in order to raise awareness of internet-worked systems by turning daily usage of technology into performative gestures. and exploring how artistic expression can enhance the way we coexist with digitality. So, in the age of transition in which material and digital experience are in an unprecedented state of coexistence, our understanding of the physical is being endlessly reshaped by advancement in technology. Consequently, the very meaning of physicality and its apparent importance to us has become subject to questioning. One of my previous practice, a fictional landscape of togetherness, relies on this uncertainty and responds to the physical restrictions because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Can we somehow multiply the point, extend the dimensions of the canvas, or do you say canvas? Extend it with depth and time, sedimentate the process, create some sort of palimpsest that communicates the layers of relationship between you and your subject. And then see what is sent, what is meant, what is received, what is understood, what is shared, and what is right. Without limitation, all copyright rights, trademarks, and any other ownership and exploitation rights will now hereafter.
So for artists working with and responding to new technologies, the hybridization of physical and digital elements has become a reflective reaction to this strange dichotomy. Not only on a formal level, but as a subjective inquiry into the impact of its growing presence. In the project I just shown to you, collaborators around the world, they scanned their surroundings and available places to construct a fictional landscape with photogrammetry techniques, which offers a virtual environment that visitors can view, can navigate, as a virtual immersive experience. Yeah. I want to mention two other examples. One is from Sarah Rudy, and the other one is from Bruce Newman. They both use 3D scanning methods, including photogrammetry and different kinds of applications, to recreate the feeling of intimacy and connectivity. Sarah uses the spatial manipulation tool from Google's SketchUp 3D program, controlling the rooms into digital offspring, merging architecture, modern technical design with abstract flavors. And the condition processes known as glocalization play an important role in recent forms of hybridity in the arts, since artists commonly seek to negotiate between local and global forces. There are many ways for people to implement ideas online. Virtual immersive environments like VR, AR, XR on the web are all emerging technological applications we have nowadays. Such developments demonstrate ways that arts can both forecast and respond to changing conditions in society. So for my project, Collage of Hybridity, I regard it as a project that focuses on digitality, virtuality, and hybridity. So my residency project starts with a general question: how can we commemorate a moment in our lives? For example, taking pictures, making an impressive purchase, replicate an item like a souvenir. All of these activities are very common in modern lives. Even if you are not passionate about this activity, you definitely have experience participating in these trends. I integrate photogrammetry and the concept of tourist gaze. Gazes organize the encounter of visitor with the other, providing some sense of competence, pleasure, and structure of those experiences from the book Tourist Gazes. So for me, through continuous cameras like tourist gazes, the present matter in front of you is sublimated into another kind of symbolic object, which is the approach of photogrammetry. Besides of the focus on the boundary between the artificial and organic, what you are seeing in this slider, including the famous tourist attraction, Statue of Liberty, the bust of Nefertiti, and the photogrammetry model I scanned in Barcelona from a statue named the Goddess. So in Collage of Hybridity is a proposal of turning moments and gazes in everyday life into forms of hybridity as a collage. So let's look again to this picture, and you can see several models in the slider. Take the 3D model of the bust of Nefertiti as an example. Is the top right side, the yellow small models. This famous model is a high-resolution scan by the Neues Museum in Berlin. This example brings up the debate of ownership. Who owns and controls digital artifacts? Is it owned by the tech companies that produce these expensive infrared cameras, the museum that obtained the copy of the artifact, or the original place that this statue actually came from? In many ways, the process operates are like another kind of exploitation and digital colonization, since most people don't have tools necessarily to create such a precise scanning model. The model of Statue of Liberty, just like other famous tourist attractions, most people get to know these places through simplified, mass-produced artifacts or products, even before having the chance to visit there in person. This example are just for demonstrating that 3D scanning is a political, capitalistic, and physical, just like any other technology. Therefore, doing photogrammetry to capture a scene with personal mobile devices, like the smartphone in your hand, could be a way to empower individuals to interpret and process something meaningful in the interlayer of authorities. We can make, share, reduplicate things that are not exclusively owned by us as a collective to create a fictional together space. It is also a channel to facilitate dialogues about the relationship among technology, culture, and the public in the condition of hybridity. Here is one example. I use web crawler to get numerous pictures on the Instagram with the same location tag. I use pictures uploaded by many unspecific people, including tourists, local residents, and they all take themselves in the same location, even they don't know each other, and they can hear with different times. But I can reconstruct a point cloud model with all these Instagram pictures. I think it represents a collective approach, but also signifies globalization and glitches in this collective approach with connectivity. So now I want to talk about the technique of photogrammetry. This is the main technique I was doing during my residency at Medialab Prado. So the procedure is first you see something analog, like a statue on the road, and you take pictures in sequence to turn it into a digital model as a digital profile. Photogrammetry captures an object, something analog, and represents materiality. I turned it into a digital profile which could be mass-produced and out of its original context. After cleaning and optimizing the digitized 3D model, we reproduce it in craft-produced ways, such as molding and casting. So it's like reproduction from digital to analog, but in a craft-produced way. I use the term digital profile to describe 3D models because digital profiles or 3D models, they usually downgrade and erase details. It's a process of normalization and generalization. During my residency, every day I went out to the street and did one photogrammetry as a 3D scanning practice. No matter it was broken, not complete, distorted, interfered by traffic, crowd, or the weather. It's my personal collage of memories, full of glitches from the everyday life. You can see I scanned public spaces like the park, the street, and also ordinary objects like the post box, the vendor, and also somewhere I just passed by, like a trash on the street or the entrance of Medialab. This technique, photogrammetry, require the operator to take pictures with overlap. So you must take pictures in sequence to create a better model. Here is an example. This is the first model I scanned. It's a statue in Barcelona named Goddess. Rooted in the science of precise measurement, photogrammetry is the practice of stitching 2D images from multiple angles into a 3D object. Depending on the size and type of capture, the number of photographs required could range from a few dozen to thousands. After comparing similar points in photograph, the photogrammetry software is also able to calculate the original capture position, angle, and sequence of shot in space. They usually compare key points and tie point, which indicates the specific point without similarities, or pictures shared the same points as the tie point. Like you can see the same point in different pictures. So we call it tie point. So the software compare key point and tie point to reconstruct the 3D model. So during my residency, the collaborator and I also hosted a public workshop titled Souveniring Almost Anything. This is a workshop on photogrammetry and 3D scanning in the context of my residency project. The workshop was structured in 2 practical sessions at Medialab Prado. In the first session, I explained the procedure of photogrammetry to help participants understand the possible strategy to obtain the optimal results. During the second session, participants tried to find an object or a moment as the souvenir to scan, and then use digital tools to process, clean, optimize models as the generalization process in mass production, and leave them ready to use in other digital environments. For example, 3D printing or placing scanned models in a virtual environment on a web page. Participants got a basic understanding of photogrammetry and gained the necessary skill to reconstruct 3D models from multiple photographs. So here are some pictures from the workshop. And the concept of souveniring is to turn an ordinary object or an object you preferred into a digital format. When an object is digitized, its symbolic meaning changes as it gains the possibility of being mass-produced. The process of seeing, scanning, reproducing a moment in life is personal, but at the same time could be opened out of the world. And its contradiction is what attracted me to continue investigating. The picture shows like me and my collaborator Harvey, we try to optimize 3D models from everyday life, even from like dishes on the table, into something more like souvenir with the similar placement and arrangement. How a simplified object, a souvenir, represents as a proper sign to identify a city, a group of people, a community, or a culture. All of a sudden, these symbols were acknowledged by a baffled population. It parallels the fact that we are living in a time of globalization. And also, connectivity is an exotic term that represents homophily with digitality. This is the instruction I gave to our participants for them before taking pictures to construct photogrammetry model. I hope it can create a feeling of togetherness. So these models are provided by our participants. They try to scan different things they saw in their life, including like the locker, the scooter, a stone, and something like a part plane. Yeah. So to talk about 3D scan and photogrammetry, why I choose photogrammetry as the approach. First is, even there are many different methods to do 3D scanning, but usually like long-range laser and short-range laser, this method requires expensive equipment. So it's not that accessible as photogrammetry. You just need a digital camera. Photogrammetry hardware, including everything, has a digital camera like a drone, a DSLR camera, GoPro, or your mobile phone. Photogrammetry is based on the technique called structure from motion, similar to how we understand depth by moving around an object. You can see the left side is the reconstructed point cloud model in a software named Metashape. And the right side is me. I was trying to capture every angle of a street light. And you take a bunch of pictures of the objects from all possible directions. Then you can use these photos as an input for a specialized software. It's not a very precise way to do 3D scanning, but the threshold is relatively low compared to other 3D scanning methods. The software compares similar features in a pair or a series of pictures to visualize the shape and appearance of an object or environment. Photogrammetry can also gather information about capture locations, angle, and sequence. Like I mentioned before, it can also 3D manipulate objects like a path plane with many faces. The process is a transformation from analog to digital, turning physical objects into virtual 3D model. You offer your labor to create traces of data of objects. And the proposal of the workshop is to reframe digitizing tools as a digital craft. With personal mobile devices, the process of photogrammetry is not a one-shot scanning, but a sequence of engagement. One spends a certain amount of time to recall an object, creates like a relationship with that specific object. The proposal of the workshop, like I mentioned, not only about recreating the object as a 3D model, but also you record a period of time, and the time and the fluctuation in that period will reflect on the 3D model you create. I also uploaded models I scanned to a platform online named Sketchfab. You can find the models I scanned with a link. I will provide it in my documentation of the residency project. So now I want to mention another experiment I did, which is I got 3D models, the digital profiles from photogrammetry, and we try to recreate this model with a very craft-produced way, which is molding and casting. It's not like mass produced, because with molding casting, every model looks slightly different from each other. So it's also about the embodied experience and also digitized craft with glitches. There are contact microphones embedded in the models to capture the trace of touches as audio signal. I want to show a video, which is Yeah, this is a video shows how I turned the plaster mold into an audio device with piezo, and use machine learning algorithms to recognize different texture of touches. I hope to use photogrammetry mechanic to stitch multiple perspectives to think about various sorts of knowledge forming and creation. This video is another experiment that I try to integrate footage I recorded during 3D scanning process. It demonstrates triggering audio and video footage with machine learning models and various touches, and some patterns captured by tangible interfaces. Yeah. Collaborating with Medialab Prado and the collaborator Javi, we are working on a more precise and effective ways for audio sensing and pattern recognition. The purpose of this approach is to integrate physical, embodied tactile perception, memories accumulated through sights and sounds, and digital profiles in order to explore the nearness and remoteness rooted in digitality. Before I finish my presentation today, I would like to share a video as part of my outcome for this project. The production of digital profiles of 3D models and the crafted molding and casting outcomes is not our primary goal, but rather the tactile, material, philosophical reflections on the mechanic of 3D scannings and the collective capacity among networked humans, non-human, and technical devices to be inclusive to all the glitches in the process.
Take whatever you have around you. Observe it, shoot it, record it, scale it, rotate it, warp it. To set something from here to there. To shape our fiction using what we have in our hands. To stitch gazes, montage memories, and collage entities. I give you mine, you let me take yours. Differences allow us to collide and to crash, so we collect bits and pieces of each other. when your things and my things are side by side, then we meet each other again, in this uncertainty.
So this is my presentation for today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Po-Hao. Is there any question? ¿Alguna pregunta?
Hi, my name is Juan David Reina. I'm the other resident here from Colombia. My question is about electronic art or digital art. Nowadays, we've seen that with more electronic and digital art, we consume more energy, right? And that energy or that resource is coming from rural areas. Normally, you know, like, I don't know, nuclear, or fossil fuel or any other renewable resource. So, and myself working in rural areas, we saw like many population around the world are increased like pressions for companies to put mega projects, you know, to generate electricity that is now consumed for art, but for sure for the daily, you know, basis that we are. What are your opinion for that? The relation between consume of a lot of energy with the digitalization, because all the things, you know, things are, and the connection with the rural areas, right? I don't know. I am just figuring out.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, yeah. So I cannot really hear very clearly. Yeah, cannot really. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, but we can discuss later.
Any other question? ¿Alguna pregunta más? Bueno, como ellos son residentes, pueden hablar después, luego, en el área de las residencias. Parece que no se han entendido muy bien. También con la mascarilla y todo esto es complicado. Bueno, pues nada, muchísimas gracias de nuevo a Po-Hao por su presentación y a todos los participantes en esta presentación.
Gracias.